Yeah, he's down there.
All right, everybody, welcome to the September 26, 2019 work session of Penfield Planning Board. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Hetzke.
Here.
Knauer.
Here.
Tidings.
Here.
Burton.
Here.
Nursinger.
Here.
Sangster.
Here.
O'Connor.
Absent.
Yep. Weishart.
Here.
And Gray.
Okay, we have no minutes yet.
Correct.
They're in process, so we will skip that. And why don't we move on to our tabled applications?
All right. The first application on your list of tabled items requires no action tonight. Just as a quick update to that, that was the daycare for Heritage Christian Services proposed on Atlantic Avenue, and the zoning board met last week, and they denied the request for the area variances that were being sought with that project. They did, following that decision, just asked for this board to table it. I'm going to say it's kind of like the dust settles, so no action was really required tonight by this board, as there are no updates other than what I just said. So
Okay.
if you're comfortable with that, we can move on to the next
All right,
one.
let's move on.
Okay, table item number 2 is for Building A of Panorama Park on Lot 1. Leading up to this meeting last week, we received a letter outlining responses to both the tabling resolution that the board issued following the meeting on the 12th, as well as responses to PRC comments, and as you see in the letter, several other items that came in. So I just kind of want to go through this line by line to cover those items. Right now, they also went to the zoning board for their area variances for the buffer setback to the zoning districts, and as well as parking. The zoning board had a good number of people at the public hearing, and a lot of concerns were noted. The board has decided to keep their public hearing open and have another public hearing in October on those matters. But while that goes on with the zoning board, this board can still continue its review process relating to site plan and all the other items that are going on. So we wanted to do that while we had that opportunity. Just AJ, one of the items that you brought up right after the public hearing was the item of the claim siltation that was going on down from the construction site. We've been out there to verify that things are getting cleaned up and that erosion control is in place per the plans. They're in there. So we've been doing our inspections, and basically right now construction continues as it goes on, and we haven't heard of anything else since the claims that were brought up.
Okay.
So that's still being monitored, and all their SWIPs are coming in, so all that the construction site is certainly being monitored the way it should
Okay.
be. One of the items that the board asked for with regards to landscaping and what was being removed was kind of what's being removed, what's the new proposed limits of disturbance versus what was approved with the overall project. So we do have a plan to show that. And Doug, I don't know, it might be a separate item in this, or it might be in this set of plans. The clearing exhibit that you just had up.
Yes, it's
Probably,
Probably
'cause
not.
I think it's a separate file. Yep. So what's been outlined here, I don't have my pointer, but they've labeled it actually. The purple line that you see on the map is what was approved under the overall approval that this board granted when you looked at this for the amount of square footage, for the total build out, for establishing development pads based on the topography that exists, and that's been outlined in purple. The green that you see is the proposed limits of disturbance along with the landscaping that they're proposing to provide in lieu of encroaching into the buffer areas. So what you see there is, again, up in that top left
Top
corner is that encroachment into it to regrade a portion of that hillside to accommodate the retaining wall that they're going to construct there. And then again, the rest is really just grading improvements that we would have anticipated as part of a final site plan package for final grading designs. Something to help paint a better picture of this is we have a cross-section that shows a horizontal view of what's proposed to be built there. And Doug, if you could pull that up. That should be right there. So this lower half of this drawing shows a cross-section of the project. If you pull it back, to the left a little bit, because it's going to show us. Good, right there. To the left, you have the location of the manufactured home park. Then you have the property line as your next item that you see. The area that will not be touched within the buffer area in those pines that are shown there. And then the next section over is that regrading and new landscaping they're proposing leading up to the grading wall. The next line is 100 feet of buffer area to the edge of pavement. So the retaining wall, the new vegetation, the regrading, everything up to the edge of pavement is 100 feet from the property line of basically green or existing green or new plantings. At 100 feet is the edge of the parking they're proposing, which triggered the area variance request for less buffer setback. The building itself is 164 feet from the property line, so that's not an issue with the buffer setback. The improvement for parking is what triggered that. So we wanted to provide this to show that profile, but also the relation of the height of the building to the manufactured home park in terms of what do we see from the adjacent residential zoning district. Based on that location there and the existing topography, you'll see that the top of the building, its roof, is far below that of the elevation of where the manufactured home park is, plus the vegetation in between that. So we wanted to provide this for you guys to have that as part of the record. And as they stated during the public hearing, any rooftop mechanical equipment would be shielded with materials that are in kind and appropriate for the building.
All right, so looks like the adjacent property is at 400 feet on the left, right?
Oh, height.
Elevation.
Yeah.
It's finished grade of the building.
Yeah, the grade level.
But the roughly of the mobile home park
Doug, can you pull it left a little
on
more?
that.
There it is. So now you got your elevation checks.
Right.
400, 410, 420.
And it looks to be about the same as the roof line of the proposed building.
Yeah, so your floor of your mobile home park area,
Yep.
development and roof of the building, same elevation.
Okay.
And again, with approximately 20 feet up of existing vegetation and then replanting in between.
And 200 feet away.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
All right. Any
Yep.
questions, concerns about that?
No, that's good.
No, I think it's a helpful.
Yeah.
It's a helpful graphic. Or
And in
diagram.
relation to both of these, your landscape consultant is reviewing these plans for any recommendations to this board based on them.
Okay.
HVAC.
How far above that would the HVAC be visible? 6 feet, maybe 3 feet.
30 inches.
5 feet.
About 5. Thank you.
So they'll be.
Yeah, screened.
Yeah, just rooftop units.
Yep.
And they did, just recently, as part of new items that came in, they just gave us some quick details on what those HVAC units would be on the roofs in terms of what ton air quantity they're moving. So they said this is, you could see something from a 5-ton to a 10-ton unit on those rooftops. Right now, they're proposed at 3 tenants in the building. Again, most of them are, 2 of the 3 are office tenants, so they're consistent with what they're proposing in the business park, which is good.
Mhm.
Let's see here. We also asked them to talk about if there were to be a tenant that specialized in calibration testing, what sorts of permits or procedures would they have to go through ahead of time, exactly. The response being any potential tenants for the building will not have any exterior events that would cause any outdoor odors. In addition, any potential clients will have to adhere to New York State Building Code, Town Code regulations for odors and emissions. So there's guidelines in place for that if that were the scenario.
If they had any sorts of emission, they need to get an air permit from DEC anyhow.
Exactly.
the
And
town
that's
would
what
be
Bill
notified.
was leading up to as
Yeah.
well. With regards to lighting, we just asked for cut sheets for all proposed pole-mounted lighting. We were provided the cut sheets for the parking lot fixtures and the building-mounted fixtures. They're on the lighting plan, so if you want to pull that up, Doug. Construction. There we go. And up top, too far, scroll to the next page.
Those are building mounted on the back of the building.
You got the wall
Is it
mount
the-
on the left, and you got the pole
Yeah.
fixture on the right.
Okay.
Seems to be the standard LED,
Mm-hmm.
dark sky compliant fixture. Okay, so those are the major updates that I have right now for this. Did everything else? Does the board have any other questions or concerns right now regarding the items that were discussed at the public hearing for this project? That you'd like the applicant to pursue or provide some answers between now and October?
No, other than, I know that we had talked about lighting that was potentially dimmable on sensors, and we can take that offline. I can look and see the fixture cut sheets, and most fixtures LED now are 0 to 10 volt dimming.
Mhm.
Because they have that capability built in.
You still
So
like
it
to see
shouldn't
that?
be an issue.
You'd still like to see that as part of this application?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I don't think shouldn't be a hardship to do that based on the state of current technology. 15 years ago, yes, it would be a lot more money, but now really shouldn't be anything more.
Oh, another thing that came in that was provided to us today was, Doug, could you go to the project folder, please? And it was just something, AJ, you mentioned during the work session last time, was an applicant correspondence. You kind of had a question about the rendering that we were looking at for this project. Is this representative of what we're seeing on the landscape plan?
Right.
Very tough to see based on the scan. I apologize for that. But I'll go and point out, this is an above-ground view, an aerial view of the camera location in which the rendering was generated,
All right.
and it does dictate the road that's out there. So again, that perception on a rendering versus
Okay, so that's where that
reality.
rendering was taken from, was right
Correct.
there.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was its focal point.
Okay.
And again, it didn't sound like the board had any concerns about the building design.
Mhm.
Everything
No, I think it looks
was
good.
in your liking. So that will remain as is. I guess at this point, would you like to continue table?
Yeah, why don't we
application
start a
until-
draft approval resolution while we're waiting on the zoning board decision.
Okay.
Anybody else have an issue with that?
No.
No.
Okay.
All right.
Right, then I guess I'll move to table it.
Second.
And take the vote.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Burton,
Aye.
Knauer,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye. Okay.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Don't wait for dinner.
Right.
Have a great night.
Rich,
You
would
too.
Rich, would you like the large printout back?
You want to keep it or?
I can hang on to it for now.
Yeah,
All right.
we'll use it.
All right.
Have a great night.
Thanks.
See ya.
Rich.
All right, so we have 2 more items left, 1 action item, 1 new business item. The first action item is a re-subdivision of 2 lots, merging them into 1. Where the hell is the swing tie on this one?
This is Plank Road on the edge of town.
Oh, they're combining those 2.
So they're combining these 2 lots.
Okay, you want to go back to the map? Oh, okay, so turn the other way.
Yeah.
Okay. So north is to your right. Combining 2 properties into 1.
Any issues with the staff? Any reason that we need to
No,
be concerned about this?
no concerns from us.
Okay, somebody want to move to
Yeah,
approve this?
to approve.
Second.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Burton,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
All right.
Okay, and we have 1 new business item that came in
Yes.
just at the end of Friday that we did not get onto your agenda, therefore it's a new business item. It's for the Penfield Square project in the mixed-use district. They've come back, and let's start with that one, thank you. As they begin to secure tenants for the out parcels, particularly the one shown on Lot 3, where are you going? Stay there. Thank you. As they secure tenants for Lot 3, as shown on the map here, those tenants have requested additional parking in the area, and you're seeing that here on the plan. Originally, there was 14 parking spaces.
Yeah, parallel to the road.
Parallel to the road, 7 on each side. Now they're proposing 38 in that area. They've avoided any disturbances to the pedestrian spine, so that has not become any narrower. It
But
does
the-
require encroaching into the green area. It still remains as about over half an acre of green in that area.
How,
Yep.
how does the overall design change on that green with this? And taking a look at this, am I correct in assuming you have tenants that are requiring this? Or what's
I'll
the,
go first and you'll fix what I said. So really, all that happens to the green area is the plain grass area gets a little smaller, right? The kind of the plantings area, right, remains largely the same. We haven't changed the planting piece of it. So the reality is with tenants, we went down the road pretty far with one particular tenant that ultimately decided not to do it. But this parking scheme was developed to accommodate their parking needs, and it was a food, non-national restaurant type food
Yep.
establishment. And they really needed a parking scheme like this. And I think it's common, it's a likely use of some other potential tenants we're talking to. And the reality is right now we're at the place where we have to decide what we're actually going to build, right? So we're either going to build the parallel parking and limit ourselves to only tenants that could have those 14 spaces, or try to build something that would accommodate way more tenants. And we had tight parking, I think that was generally true. So we don't have a tenant to sign lease. We have to make this decision because we have to build one or the other.
okay. Did you have something to say, Mr. Vars?
Yes, thank you. 2 things.
Or fix something
Well,
else.
no, it's actually to enhance something Brett said, because it is very important, because this parking will be constructed this fall. And as they pursue tenants, if it's constructed with a parallel parking, a tenant, if they're trying to land a tenant, they're going to see the parallel parking, even though we could say, well, we have a plan here to do perpendicular. They're not able to process that. They're going to want to see the actual parking, and that will actually help them with leasing, because they'll say, there's our parking. As it relates to your design question, AJ, I'm going to say the hardscape design, the elements of both the pedestrian spine and the public green have not changed. The pedestrian spine is unchanged. Everything that you saw and approved is still there. The lighting schemes, everything. Because we thought it was very important to maintain the pedestrian spine because of its potential and the key element that plays of linking to the north as things progress. So what we did is we therefore went to the east, and it's about a 25-foot shift to the east. But everything went with it, all of the elements that were proposed, the landscaping elements, the garden elements, the pathways, they're all still there. It just shifted over. It leaves about 20,000 square feet or so, 22,000 square feet, so of
About a
area.
half acre.
Correct, and just for comparison purposes, that's very similar to Kennelly. It's actually larger than Kennelly Park in the village of Fairport. It's just a little bit smaller than Washington Square Park in the city of Rochester. It's twice the size of a park that SWBR's worked on out at College Town. Point being is, it is a still functional space for the programming you're thinking.
I can't remember or read the distance. There's a line there that shows the distance of the green.
Yes.
Yeah, 116 feet.
116 feet. Now, this room is like 70 feet, if I'm counting my tiles correctly, wide. So you can imagine, this green space, I think, is bigger than people can imagine it.
Peter, what's the reduction in green space?
It was, I want to say it was less than 1%. Because we did check that, because we knew what we had for the code requirement.
The overall.
Yeah.
So between that and the increase in pervious area, what does that do to your stormwater plan?
It was like 26 cubic feet of additional bioretention area that was required.
Really?
In other words,
It's
it was
almost
a
a wash.
nominal number.
Almost a wash.
So it's much more of a visual impact than it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the visual would be instead of that, you would see parallel parked cars, you're going to see perpendicular parked cars.
Instead of 10-foot lanes for parallel parking, it's whatever it is, 18-foot
Right.
So,
spaces.
so during the original public presentations, you shared some very nice renderings.
Mhm.
Do you have a rendering prepared to show this that we can compare to the original rendering?
Yes, SWBR is preparing those. Don may be here any minute. I believe he is bringing them with him if you'd like to see them. Just so you know, it is still proposed to be curved on the west side along the pedestrian spine as it always has been.
Mhm.
And on the east side, the curb is flush so that, to accommodate the drainage. But along that west edge that is planted. If it.
So
were
the
to go
east
back
edge
to
of the
land-
parking lot and the west edge of the green space?
Yeah.
Is that what you're
And
talking
so
about?
as Doug, on the landscape plan, so it does show that it is still planted along
Okay.
there, and the bioretention area is completely planted.
Okay, what about lighting of that space, those parking spots?
So the lighting is still,
It's still this.
it's the same
It's the
lighting.
same lighting.
Yeah.
So we had a few,
There were
You want us to go back to the old
couple
one?
of poles.
5, or I think, is the number of poles
Yes.
along the
Along the spine.
Should
spine,
have-
in addition to lighting on the
Yep.
buildings.
Okay.
So they're on the spine side.
Yeah, there you go.
So there.
You had some you did have some long.
Yeah, so those
You
light
said the
poles
bollards,
along
Those
the
bollards.
east edge will just get moved out to the new curb lines.
Okay,
Yeah, they'll move with it.
The
Okay.
lighting on the spine.
The lighting on the spine is unchanged.
okay. What do you guys think?
I'd like to see the renderings and have an opportunity to look at them side by side.
Wants to wait?
It's sounding like it's mathematically an insignificant change. But I'd like to see visually what kind of impact.
Well,
that is.
visually,
It's
it takes it from that, I don't know, villagey type feel to a parking lot. I get the fact, I mean, we had discussed this before, during the original approval process of, all right, where are people gonna park for these
Well, and in fairness to the developer,
businesses?
they don't know what kind of tenants they're going to be able to
Right.
attract, but that was part of our challenge with our first mixed-use development approval
Correct.
process, is to see how we can kind of maintain the intent of the mixed-use development guideline in the big scheme of things, and that's why I just think being able to visually take a look at that and have that comparison, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, that potential, I mean, that's the only thing that this is the last thing that we're talking about right now, right?
Yes.
Where are they? Where is he?
I don't know.
He's at the bar at Don's.
Yeah.
having a
The
beer.
original.
I mean, he may have thought it started at 7 too, so we do have a couple minutes if you want to give him that. If not, can he bring us back in October? Is it,
Cell phone's gonna be bombarded with text messages here momentarily.
Yeah.
there you go, there you go.
You know, ironic, because he asked, he said, well, we're last on the agenda. If you get here around 7, you should be fine.
Hmm.
I'm sure he used that.
Yeah.
He's got plenty of time.
It is. 3 minutes.
Doug, can you do the layout that just shows, because I know in that one, there's a lot of other, it just shows the,
The original
The
layout?
original.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was gonna try to
Site.
find the last time was the,
Did you guys do a layover in gray space so we could kind of see through the layers?
We did not. I don't know if that's what we did.
Remember the side by side, Doug?
that's a
There you go.
You're relenting control of the site plan to an architect, you know? No comment.
So, does a good job capturing before and after for you.
I mean, I get
Why the same
I get the fact that businesses need
Parking.
customers to be able to park nearby.
He's like 5 minutes away or something.
All right.
So I'd also, while we're waiting, perhaps the applicant can share with us how that impacts the other commercial spaces and what ifs.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we kind of had it set in our minds that certain components of this site were going to remain static. And then, of course, you meet the challenges with potential tenants as they. So what happens with the other commercial space should they find that parking isn't sufficient, and, you know, how do you see that?
You mean the one in the front?
Well, 2 things, and correct me if I'm wrong. A, first off, the parcel is smaller, about half the size. Doug, if you don't mind swinging over there, either one. So it is smaller, and we do have the perpendicular parking on the west side, but they have the ability, I think we have talked that employees there do have the ability to use parking up here.
Right.
Yeah, up in the northeast corner.
So employees of that outbuilding, you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can park up there, and then that leaves those spaces for customer parking, which, based on the size of that building, actually provide a decent ratio.
And you have the street parking available too.
Right,
Right.
yes.
The other thing that's true is that this parking lane. Also serves the bistro that's internal to the assisted living building.
Mhm.
So there's a little bit higher demand over here as well, right? I think
How do you arrive at 38?
it's as many as we could fit.
Right. It's that simple.
Right, it's, without,
5-pound bag.
yeah. That's simple. And we wanted to keep, I don't want to call it a parking lot because I still feel it maintains this kind of going around the green, even though I recognize it looks more like a parking lot because of the perpendicular nature to it. But
The size of those are what?
9 by 18,
9 by 18?
standard for our parking stalls.
I'll personally say I like the look of the kind of more village green perpendicular, parallel parking scheme. But I think the trade-off here is for a parking ratio like that, I think the tenants that we'll get will be less vibrant to the community, right? It's much more likely to be simple walk-in, walk-out service, much more highly likely to be medical use, which this is still possibly for like medical office
Right.
use. If we can get a tenant that,
It
has-
brings people into it.
Like if it's a coffee shop or a bakery
Yep.
or something like that,
Or
the
pub.
feel of the place is impacted much more positively than the loss of the aesthetic of the parallel.
Yeah.
And two things is, A, first of all, something like this does increase the number, the potential tenant pool.
Yeah.
Okay. But second of all, is if we were to proceed with the parallel parking plan, because we don't have a specific tenant right now, and then they get a tenant in line, and then we have to come in for site plan review, right? And we say, well, yep, this tenant is a restaurant, or it is a retail establishment, and guess what? We need 28 parking spaces, or 38 parking spaces. And so this is why we need to do this, and you may say, yep, that makes sense. But then you'll have all of those plantings and everything we would install based on the old plan are all going to have to get moved. And you're gonna lose some time on those establishing themselves and just becoming part of the setting.
Once we build the parallel parking, we can't afford to take it up.
And that's the
Well, it
other
would make a mess of the whole site.
Exactly.
I will say that there's two things that I think are missing here. One is accessible spaces and access aisles. And the other one is that we would typically request that there be some raised curved areas there with some plantings to break up that amount of
Yeah,
blank
between-
time.
Well, and then the other question would be, should it be asphalt? Could it be some other
Could be
material? with
something else.
Pavers or something that was a little
Yeah.
nicer.
Yeah, to answer the accessible question, Doug, if you don't mind going a little bit, thank you. If you see the Lot 3 line, see how it incorporates those accessible spaces there? Those
So-
are attributed to Lot 3.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
doesn't matter because the national regulations require every single parking lot to meet the minimum number of accessible spaces and access aisles. So you're obligated to put accessible spaces there
So we
anyhow.
just have to move some.
So, well, you're still gonna need some there.
Overall, we meet the standard, so we'll just have to
So we
recreate
put
some.
the 3 spots that accommodate 2
Yeah.
cars and an access aisle, and we move them to the other side.
Then you just pick them
Maintain
up
the
over
parking, we maintain the.
Yeah.
And,
Total
and
space is
they,
same.
and they also have to be located adjacent to the accessible
You're
entrance to
saying
the
makes
building.
total
So-
sense.
Yes,
What you're
yes,
saying.
we understand.
Yeah.
But as important is breaking that up with some raised curved.
Yeah, I was
planting
thinking
areas.
the same thing, some sort of landscaping
Which is
element.
consistent with your
Yeah.
overall design.
I don't think I understand what you're saying, that's all.
So I think what you're saying is lose one space on each side and turn them into a curved aisle.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So you don't have the row of 19.
So we've got,
You have a row at
we've got little
10,
greens,
island
we've got
9.
some plant material, we've got some
99.
color.
Yeah.
I wonder too if there's a road material that would look, I don't know, more
There's a lot of things.
villagey.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we ask them to come up with something, they can come up with
Winded?
something.
Guys are too efficient.
We were gonna come down to Don's and meet you and have you pick up the tab.
Before we leave this, and before we leave this topic, and I wanted to extend this to Brett too, in thinking about this. Obviously, we know 38 is the desired amount because you have the space to accommodate that. You know, considering that a lot of this district, and this entire district, actually requires shared parking with your adjacent neighbors, that being the YMCA. Was it examined if 19 parking spaces, the half against the pedestrian spine, would be suitable along with the shared parking available at the YMCA based on those tenant needs?
The 19 is only, what, 5 more than we have now?
Right, correct.
Well, besides, if it's a restaurant or that type of quick turnaround
Mhm.
facility, people aren't gonna park across the way and walk over here. They'll go to another restaurant in town.
I mean, I know it's human nature.
Yes.
I would hope that because parking is so readily available, not very far away, 50 feet, but I just wanted to ask it for,
YMCA is not gonna let us use the
So
park.
you're gonna end up with 35. You know,
they're gonna be reminded that shared parking is required.
Okay, well, I can't go to that, that's not.
No, that's what
Just
cross-access
curious,
and shared parking
I mean,
is
are
for.
they grandfathered? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
because
like,
I'm
are they
sorry?
Grandfathered because they built before that ordinance, or were they part of the ordinance?
No, they're within the mixed-use district, and they've been at the table the whole time, understanding that shared parking comes with mixed use and being in that district, so, if that conversation has to take place, it can between staff and them. But again, I just wanted to ask, as part of AJ's, in terms of AJ's, point about the streetscape and changing it from that village picture to, you know, more parking in the area, I just wanted to ask if that was examined at all, that's all.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. Like, I would just keep it parallel parking and save the money on asphalt
Sure.
for 5 more spaces.
Okay. Can we see,
Anything that shows the difference.
They were
What you have?
Oh, you weren't able to email it and have
Oh, they have the hards.
Yeah, we were looking for
I just
colored
didn't know if you had prepared
rendered,
the renderings of the view shed.
Similar to remember the landscape plan we reviewed that had the renderings and those 3 tiles below during the original approval process? I think that's kind of the image the board still has in their head of like, if I'm there, what do I see?
Okay, so we really didn't prepare those, and the primary reason was because the pedestrian spine's not changing at all. You know, what's really changing is the park side, because we're keeping the exact same design, and I don't know if we're able to email.
Oh, yeah, they have
the
the
updated plan. So.
You kind of spoiled us with the colored renderings. And, you know, we based in part our position to move things forward with plans that we see.
Mhm.
And so we were hoping that you could share one because it's significant amount
Yeah,
more
that's it.
pervious surface than
It's
was
all
there
parallel.
before.
yeah.
So we would kind of like to see that and be able to compare that to the original plan and see them side by side,
Okay.
if you will.
Okay, so we don't have that, we can put something together. You know, again, the view down the pedestrian spine is not gonna change. We still have the exact same kind of tree area,
to
the
landscape
same
plan.
alley of trees, the same kind of furnishing pattern. We kept that curb line, so really it's just, the impact has been all on the pocket park side where we felt we were comfortable already. You know, we can,
Did it change the turning radius of that northwest
No.
No, because
Drive
that's
out.
actually what we used as the the northern limit of the parking revision is where the existing bump outs ended also, so that we maintained the.
So that's exactly the
radiuses.
same.
Yes, and the pedestrian access crossings, you've got 2 pedestrian crossings,
Huh.
none of those changed.
How can that be exactly the same if,
The
Well,
we
radius
now
is
have
the
18
radius
feet.
range.
We just extended the green side of the, yeah.
Well, you can
okay,
see
so the west,
Mhm.
it was moved east.
Yes.
So we do
So
have
the-
that perennial, that area on the landscape plan that's labeled perennial bed. It's a little
Those
bit
are
larger,
before.
that's kind of on that elbow. Because the center line of the road is moved to the east. So the area up in the upper left is labeled perennial bed. That's gotten a little bit larger. Because the road is moved to the right. That's really, you can see that dashed line.
The dashed line is the old line.
old kind of curb line.
So yeah, the whole, it did shift.
So you can see how that's moved to the west. I think the radius is a little bit softer, right? Mike?
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
So
Yeah.
it's basically the same idea, just shifted east.
All right.
In terms of like trying to break up the parking, I'm okay with those 2 spots. Make a
Put the
little
islands
space, right?
Yeah,
Did you
looks like
consider-
you'd lose 3.
Did you consider angled parking?
You lose the ADA.
But you'll pick it up,
Exactly.
you'll pick it up on the others.
Where are you looking at doing that? Just, I'm sorry.
We're
Somewhere
just-
in the middle of they thought to break up the line of 19 spaces, maybe have
We'll do
9,
9 and 9.
9 and 9 with a little, with an island for greenness.
So that you could walk through.
Yeah, I would put
It
it where
would
the
create another-
pedestrian, put it right
Yeah,
where
that-
the pedestrian between them,
And then it's
Yeah.
just a continuous pedestrian path.
exactly.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, so you could have another entrance into the pocket park at that point.
Right.
So you just go straight across the road.
Yeah,
kind
no,
of,
I think
you know,
that would be
actually-
nice. I think we had that in the plans at one point.
Yeah, I think you did too.
Yeah.
What was your question, AT&T?
Did you consider
Angle.
angled
The only problem with
parking?
angle parking is then you have to go to a one-way traffic path. And that's
Gotcha.
just not.
And it's two-way, right?
It'll
Yeah.
confuse people,
Yeah.
because you'd have to enter.
Well, you'd have them,
They'd be opposing
It would
angles,
have to
but you
be.
still,
You'd have to
you have
enter.
to take one side.
On the close entrance, but everybody would pass it, and then they couldn't go park, right?
It's like a switchback in a parking garage.
Right.
They won't
Right.
park on the right until you turn around and come back, and then you.
right, yeah, okay,
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
gonna be people nuts.
okay. All right. So.
So I hear the revisions that you brought up, Jim, with the islands to break up
Mhm.
the rows of parking, to soften it. You'd like to see that in a revised plan at a future meeting.
And it sounds like
And-
they're picking up on that.
Yeah, and the
Try to
rendering
align that
that's.
with the pedestrian
Okay,
traffic
do you mind if I
pattern.
grab this?
Yes, I hear that as
Yes.
well.
This is what you're talking about, basically, right?
Yep.
That, and then there's another landscape plan that we looked at too.
I mean, it's all done in Revit or AutoCAD or something, isn't it?
The renderings?
Well, isn't the design all done in that? I mean,
Yeah. and
can't you
then it's-
just,
We can do it. I mean, we have the
Yeah,
three-dimensional
push a button and
model,
take us
so
on
we
a
can
three-dimensional
do that.
tour?
And enhance it a little bit. It takes a little time, but we can.
I don't think we have the luxury of time.
That's right.
uh,
We have to put in the storm equipment before next month, honestly.
Yeah, that is the challenge. We're the last week of September. If we wait 2 weeks to come back, we'll get pushed against the paving envelope because of the underground work they have to do. And so I guess what I would ask is that the board would consider approving this evening under the condition that the islands are installed. Place in the ADA parking is added as requested, for staff to sign off on that yes, that's met the intent of this board. I appreciate, the request of wanting to see the renderings, but I think is not going out. The view down the spot will be the same because there's been no changes to it. The view along the east side will be the same also because, as I said, we just took all of those elements and just shifted them the 20 plus feet to the east. The change would be is that 116-foot dimension up top was originally around 138 feet. So what the change is that width of the open area, so to speak.
So,
I'll tell you what the exciting thing to me is about this is that if we did a rendering, what's going to become more real is all the people in it. I think that this has the opportunity to really activate that space, and it's more about sometimes the people than how it looks. Because I think a restaurant like this will just activate the space and fill it with people. I think that's really important.
how long, I mean, you do understand that you came in last minute, put us on the spot. This can't be something that oh geez, Monday you thought about, and quick whip up the plans and we'll.
It did meet with PRC last Wednesday, and then we received everything formally at the end of the day Friday.
It would be unusual for us to grant approval for something that we don't actually have plans that represent
What's going to
the
happen?
proposed change. So maybe in lieu of the colored renderings, maybe you can make a change to the site plan, make the changes that we've just discussed here, and give us that layover where the old plan is in gray space in the background and the new plan is layered on top, and get it to us. We should be able to turn that around pretty quick.
Next meeting's October 10th, I think, right?
Mhm.
It's only 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, it'll be, I don't want to say that we couldn't do that, but it's real possible that I go back to my construction team and they say, we can't wait to do this.
Well,
I guess.
I'm not an engineer and I'm not up to date with what's been done on site, what's the next phase on site in terms of your construction. With respect to, it sounds like utilities are coming up next, and I know there's a lot of utilities that have to go in with this. And I'm not one to say if, I don't know how it impacts the paving schedule as you mentioned earlier, but I know there's a lot to go with this, a lot more work to do out there, because all that's been done is mass grading at this point.
Well, there's no reason why you couldn't install the stormwater improvements.
That's where I'm
at
going with
risk.
this. There's other things that can go in.
Anticipation, yeah.
See what you're saying.
Well, not even at risk, but
I
avoiding this,
understand. I
avoiding
know.
this
So just
area.
Proceed with your work, and we'll work with Peter to get
Proceed
something
with
that,
the proposed plan, and we're taking the risk that we come back here and you
Yeah,
hate
but
our
the-
rendering.
If you hate
You know,
it,
listen.
then we gotta.
this isn't the kind of board that's
No, I
gonna
understand that.
switch things up on you tomorrow. But if we see things that somebody on the board finds an objection to, and we ask BME for some other revisions,
Mhm.
then we work through that like we work through any other
Yeah.
challenge.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Jim. I have to say, it strikes me as odd that the concept of adding these parking spaces, came up 2 weeks ago. And, I mean, it gives us really you're giving us no wiggle room. And that's what I appreciate the position that you want to get the construction done. Nobody thought of this a month ago or a month and a half ago.
Well,
in a minute, a two-meeting process, but.
Well, and part of the challenge is though, is all along through the process, everybody was trying to stay as true as they could
Mhm.
to the mixed-use design manual. But yet we also everybody understood, this is the first one. We are gonna learn some things along the way.
No, we're learning. things.
Exactly, that's what I mean, when I say we,
Yeah.
everybody involved. And, you know, and with the fact of this commercial building, what has been learned through the summer is the tenant lease challenges, because the tenants they have spoken to, and you heard them say at the beginning, the restaurant user ultimately walked away because they just felt they couldn't park, they didn't have the parking.
Well, even at that, 35 spaces for a restaurant is not a lot of spaces.
But,
No, it depends on the size of the restaurant, right?
but part of it too, though, is
70.
Depends on their
perception.
operation. If it's
Yeah.
a quick turnaround, they can, you know, it's like the one that we just did on Empire.
So, I mean, the point is, that's, you know, that's what, they can only react to the feedback they're getting in real time. Because, yes, they also understood when this first started surfacing a month ago, the discussions, you know, that was one of the first questions I said, well, we contacted staff, said, yeah, you're gonna need to bring that back into board. Because we originally floated the idea with the PRC as to what is the magnitude of the site plan change. And I think it was about 3 weeks, a month or so ago, when staff directed, said, you need to get to PRC and you will have to get on a board meeting agenda. And so,
Been leading up to this, correct?
yeah, that's because they understood it was a change and we're trying to make it work without having to change.
And again,
We don't
it's-
want to keep coming back for everything.
Right, it's just the
Right.
first time this board has seen it is
Yeah,
where we're coming from,
and
right?
Can you understand that? So,
Okay. So, where do we want to go from here?
Well, I think do we need to?
Well, why don't we, does anybody have a fundamental issue with the request?
Right. That is-
I
Do you have a
I don't.
fundamental issue? Do you have a fundamental issue?
No,
Do
no.
you
I-
have?
I think
I
with
think
the-
in
what
the
Jim
big scheme of
suggested.
things, what we've wanted from day one is to avoid a bunch of vacant buildings.
Agreed.
We're looking for a successful project, and if this can contribute to the overall success of the project, and it's something that people drive down the 250 corridor and see as vibrant and successful, I think that's a win for everybody.
Right. I agree. So, based on that, why don't we get the site plan changes put together? And we can address it at the next meeting during the work session.
mhm.
And,
That won't be new business.
Be an action
It'll
item.
be an
Right.
action item on the agenda, and we can act on it, but if you can,
Yes.
if you can get that to Zach sooner rather than later,
Yeah,
and he can feed that to us in the interim and not wait until,
unrolling it for the first time on the 10th of October.
yeah.
Right.
So give us a chance to look at it ahead of time and,
right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like texting my site guy right
All
now.
right. Okay. Okay,
tell him to order the pipe.
Yeah.
so.
You don't need any votes or any
You don't
act-
need any, because it's not a,
It's a new business item, we'll just
Yeah.
put it on, well, this item will be placed on your
Still a tabled
agenda.
application.
well, not even a tabled application,
No.
it's not, it's,
No, but their application is still,
well, we're not tabling it, we're waiting for them to come in with
right,
the
a
actual,
revised
right,
agenda item.
correct. So we don't need to
Again.
table
Correct.
anything, we don't really need to take any action. Is that correct?
The conversation will be held until the next meeting and it'll be placed on the agenda as an action item.
Right. That's appropriate, counsel?
Yes.
All right, good. Okay,
So with that being said, there's no other items to discuss tonight.
okay. No other business? We will adjourn until October 10th.